I know that Heavy isn't usually associated with having a lot of skill expression, at least when it comes to movement. With classes like Scout, Soldier, and Demo in the game, this makes a lot of sense. However, I do believe that playing Heavy effectively takes a lot of skill, not because his mechanics are very complicated or difficult to master, but because the game around him is complex. While there are other movement options available to Heavy, such as damage surfing or gloves of running urgently parkour spots, this video is going to be focused on making the most of your movement speed while spun up. This may seem a bit backwards, but hear me out. Being spun up as Heavy is required to deal damage with your primary, and dealing damage with your primary is kind of the reason you play Heavy, so you will inevitably be spun up very often. Just because you are spun up and shooting at things doesn't mean that you shouldn't move around. The other team will still want to kill you, and you really never want to stand still in this game. Because you move at roughly half speed when spun up, there is not a lot of room for error. Being out of position as Heavy is typically a death sentence, especially when your gun is revved. You may think that I am being dramatic, but where I choose to move when I have my minigun revved up plays a huge role in my gameplay. In fact, I almost never use the Brass Beast because it renders you almost completely immobile when spun up. By the end of this video, you will see what I mean. Classes like Scout and Soldier have the luxury of choosing their fights because they are extremely mobile. If a fight is disadvantageous for either of these guys, they can simply run or rocket jump away to safety. Heavy does not have this luxury and instead relies solely on positioning to reduce the risk of unfavorable situations. I am not going to repeat positioning fundamentals in this video, just know that where you are standing on a very macro level is important for this. This video is going to be focused on the very subtle things that can be changed with Heavy's measly spun up movement speed. So what are some ways that Heavy can actually pick fights? The first and easiest to visualize and demonstrate is a head glitch that has stairs or a ramp. The sloped surface allows for the Heavy to adjust how much of his body is peeking out at a time, meaning that he can approach the head glitch spun up, peek out just far enough to shoot at one target, and then at any time peek further or duck back down. Keep in mind that you don't even need a traditional head glitch to get this effect. If you are significantly higher than your target, you can back away from the edge to hide the bottom portion of your hitbox while still being able to see all of your opponent's hitbox. Other times, you may even want to drop off of the height in order to chase an enemy that has broken line of sight with you. Just keep in mind that this is very committal, and you don't really have an easy way to change your mind once you do this. Another simple concept is using your movement to peek around a corner. If you start to round a corner spun up and spot that there are multiple enemies, you can reverse direction until you only have one enemy in your line of sight. While Soldier, Demo, and in some cases Pyro can still deal splash damage to you once you have broken line of sight, this will reduce the amount of damage that you are taking in most cases while still maximizing your own damage output because you can only shoot one target at a time. Outside of using your slow movement and map geometry to limit your exposure to enemy bullets and bombs, what else can you do with your measly movement speed while spun up? I will start with a less obvious example of a use for my spun up movement, moving towards a vulnerable target. On this channel I have talked about this before, but I will repeat myself for those who are new. When you are fighting an enemy as Heavy, you pretty much always want to be spun up. Oftentimes, spinning down is an invitation for your enemy to commit to the fight with their inevitably superior movement, and then kill you before you have time to spin up and deal enough damage to kill them. Instead, slow and steady is the way to go. In this clip, I have an overheal and notice an overextended Soldier. I know that if I can get into a spot where I'm able to trade damage with him, that I am likely to win the fight. Instead of just holding W and jump revving, I spin up my minigun and approach slowly because there is a high likelihood that someone else might push me from another direction, as well as because even if the Soldier notices me and starts to spam me from around a corner, by the time I get to peek into him, I should have enough health to get the kill and escape. Throughout the duration of this clip, I reposition without ever spinning down a single time. The reasons for many of the movements are not obvious unless pointed out. I don't want to go too far forward because of the risk of getting sniped. I back up to avoid sniper as well as to get onto a head glitch to fight the Heavy, and to make sure my medic doesn't have to overcommit to keep healing me. I adjust a bit at one point to avoid getting quickscope headshot from the flank, and then finally I push really aggressive because I see an opportunity to kill a weak Pyro. Another easy to demonstrate technique is controlling a health pack during a fight. More specifically, controlling exactly when you take the health pack. You don't want to wait too long and die too early, but you also don't want to grab the pack and get a third of the pack's healing potential and then take more damage a second later. Lastly, I want to talk about using movement to dodge. Obviously, as a big, fat, spun-up heavy, there are many things that you cannot avoid simply because you are so slow. However, you can use your tiny little bit of movement to abuse the map geometry to avoid incoming damage sometimes. There are so many unique possibilities with this, so I'm not even going to attempt to make some sort of list. Just be on the lookout when playing, and don't be afraid to get creative. Of course, you can still dodge some damage with just movement alone. Rockets and grenades at long range can be avoided reactively, and you can cause players to miss you with shotguns and other firearms by shimmying back and forth. Sometimes the best way to avoid damage is to take some. Depending on the situation, pushing into a player attempting to corner peek you can actually reduce the total amount of damage you would take, even if it means you eat a couple of rockets to the face. Due to the hidden damage and accuracy reduction for the first second of being spun up, closing the distance at a snail's pace when fully revved is often the correct play. One thing I pointed out earlier is peeking and unpeeking from a head glitch or a corner. Other than using this to attempt to isolate a 1v1, you can also wait on a distraction from your team in order to swing. Alternatively, you can use other things like objective pressure to your advantage and peek accordingly. Using your spun-up movement is essential to actually getting value out of your good positioning. Oftentimes, you can be positioned in a really good spot, but you are peeking slightly too far out or too early and you end up getting focus fired. Heavy is extremely vulnerable to getting ganged up on, so you really want to limit your exposure to the other team by hiding your hitbox from everybody except who you are shooting at as much as possible. This also ties in with how your team is playing as well. A good position can actually be trash if you have no pressure from your team. There are many flanks that I have pulled off that would have never worked if my team wasn't distracting for me. I guess the point I am trying to get across is how good heavy positioning actually relies on smart movement. The type of small adjustments I have been talking about in this video that you may not notice if I didn't point them out. There are so many spots that I would consider really powerful, but only if the heavy player understands why they are powerful and moves around accordingly. For instance, on this Swiftwater game, I hid in this corner waiting for the blue team to be vulnerable. If I peeked earlier, I probably would have only gotten 1 or 2 kills before getting spammed out because the bulk of their team wouldn't be committed into the tunnel yet. Furthermore, the snipers may have still been posted up from afar. Instead, waiting until what feels like the right moment and then moving like 2 feet nets me a ton of kills. Sometimes just a little movement goes a really long way. Thanks for watching. Just like probably why this game feels pretty good after most of the other points feeling pretty terrible. Well, we can kill this telly. That's gonna be in here because it's like engineer players are not creative. No, our medic got telefragged. I purposefully left the teleporter there. I purposely left it there so that I could farm another kill. And evidently, I should not have done that.